Well, I'm glad to see I'm not the only person that's really excited tonight. I want to take this opportunity to welcome everybody and thank you for coming out. This is just such an exciting evening for us to have the governor downriver, and I appreciate that everybody has come out to help us to let him know that he's got our support, and we're really looking for the continuation of the good work that has been started in the last 4 years, so we appreciate that. I would like to just take one moment. I know that we have some elected officials in the audience, and I know that Pat Somerville is here, and I know we have some folks from some of the communities. If you are an elected official, if you would just stand up for a second. Thank you so much. Now it's my privilege to introduce my friend Greg Flum, who's going to introduce the governor. Greg is the Vice President and General Manager of BASF, and I think most of you probably know him. He gets around a lot down here, so and he gets his picture in the paper a lot. Always good stuff, but he's going to introduce the governor for us this evening.
Thank you. Relentless positive action. That's why when I was asked to come up here and introduce the governor, I said, anybody who believes in relentless positive action, I want to be close to. And luckily, we've met a couple of times beforehand. We've worked on some projects together. The first time the governor was kind enough to come up on stage when we talked about the BASF We Create Chemistry for a Sustainable Future strategy. You know, this is all focused on how do we use technology to make sure we can solve the world challenges, both in Michigan and around the world. Great contribution that the governor made. Secondly, we've worked on some projects that resulted in big investment and big growth here in Michigan. And it's all based on the agenda, the 100-point plan, the making sure that we increase competitiveness in Michigan. And that's what I really wanted to say is, I think our business, what the governor's doing, we have a lot in common. The key things are, we want to make sure we keep growing. We want to make sure we keep moving forward. And that's with that relentless positive action. Great job. Second thing is, we want to make sure that we're taking care of the people, the communities, the environment around us. And that's part of that plan also, is how do we make sure this is sustainable? How do we make sure this works out years into the future? And the third thing we have in common, which is the most important thing, is I know that we're both going to vote for the same gubernatorial candidate next Tuesday. So with that, it's my pleasure, it's my honor, my privilege to introduce the governor of the great state of Michigan, Rick Snyder.
Okay, they asked me to, if you hear groans, it's because they really hate it when I get the microphone. But they asked me to give you a little bit of an idea of how things are going to go this evening, and all of the chamber members are used to having me tell them what to do, so this will go really, really well. The governor is going to speak, and we're going to have an opportunity for a question and answer. There will be a couple of people walking around with handheld mics for you to ask your question. If you have a question of the governor, raise your hand and someone will come around. If you don't get to ask your question, please go afterward over to the registration table. There will be cards over there. You can fill out the card, put your question on that card, and you will get your question answered, even if you don't get to have it answered in person here. So once again, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and we're really happy to hear what you have to say for us tonight.
Well, thank you, Sandy. It's great. Let's give a big shout out to all the chambers. Yeah, Greg, thanks for that introduction. I really appreciate it. I actually had the chance to visit their world headquarters, BASF in Germany, and really talk about how we can partner together on creating more jobs. They're investing more in Michigan, creating 170-some jobs over the last couple of years. And then it ties right into the chamber. because it's to help all business, small and medium-sized business, because you're the job generators. You make the jobs happen. And it's really to make sure we have that environment for success. It's wonderful to be in this area. Actually, I was very happy that I was just here in mid-September. It was a different occasion. My nephew had his wedding reception here, and that was a lot of fun. A little bit different today, but it's great to be with you. What I thought I'd do is start by giving you some perspective of what this is all about to me, and then talking about what we've done and where we're going, and then really save most of the time for questions. And when I say what it's about for me, it was for many of us, I believe. Because if you go back to 2009, what really drove me to decide to run for office? What drove you, many of you, to have an interest in supporting me back then? And not just supporting me, but to talk about reinventing Michigan. And it really goes back to the fact we were broken. Think about 2009 when you'd turn on the television and you'd see that business closing down, those jobs going away. You'd turn on the TV and you'd see that business leaving Michigan, moving south for a better tax environment, better regulatory environment, taking those jobs out of our state. Think about that home sale that happened in your neighborhood, where you'd see that sign go up, you'd hear what it was being sold for, and you'd wonder, is my house now worth less than the mortgage I have on it? Am I underwater? Think about the cases where we had the high school graduation, the college graduation. And we heard about those young people that were so excited, that we love so much, and we heard how they're going to Chicago, or they're going to Florida, or they're going to New York, California, but they were leaving Michigan. That was not a good period, folks. That was awful. And so I was expressing that to my wife. We have 3 great kids. They're college age now, or just out of college. And I told her, I said, this is terrible. We want to have an opportunity for our children to stay in our state. And we need to create an opportunity not just for our kids, but for all these kids. And traditional politics aren't going to do it. Fixing Michigan was not good enough. We need to reinvent our state. And to be blunt, she called me out. I shared that, and she said we should talk about you running for governor. And we spent a month as a family, and we made a family decision to invest part of our lives into hopefully being governor and representing the state. And so we started on that process. And I was very fortunate and honored to get elected back in 2010. And then it was time to roll up the sleeves and go to work. And how have we done? Well, to give you a few metrics on how we've done in the last 4 years, is we've created nearly 300,000 private sector jobs. Now, people sort of wonder, what does that mean in the bigger picture of our country? Because I can show you a forecast. It was actually given to me at this thing called New Governor School. Believe there is such a thing or not? They gave me a forecast to show expected job growth in the state of Michigan from 2009 through 2014. We're expected to rank number 50 in terms of job growth through 2014. How did we actually do with nearly 300,000 private sector jobs? Our job growth rate put us at number 13 of the 50 states. In terms of total number of jobs created, we're number 5 in the United States. That's pretty good, folks, given where we're at. In terms of that home question, in terms of those home values, we saw them go down a lot. And they're not fully back to where we were. But a report came out about a month ago that showed home value changes in the last 12 months in the country. The number 1 state in the nation was Michigan in terms of increases. Now about that young people question. Our population is growing again. We're starting to keep those young people here. I hope you've seen that. You've felt it in some way, that you know some young person that is now able to stay here. Great part is we're starting to see some come back. But we need to accelerate that and create that path to success. So we've gotten a lot done. Actually, I'm going to spare you. This is actually the list of all the stuff for the first 3 years in terms of laws and regulations we've changed. It's a lot. And I want to thank my partner. We've got a great partner. Pat Somerville's done a fabulous job. I wouldn't do this by myself. It's teamwork, and Pat's been an important member of that team, and you should be proud that he's representing this area. So where do we go from here, though? What I can tell you is I don't want to be complacent nor content with where we're at. It's not good enough. We can do better. I want to actually accelerate and do a lot more in the second term, and there are 3 things I'll share with you. The first one is let's continue more and better jobs. We have a huge opportunity to deal with something we messed up in our country. And I know we have some business people here, and I bet this one will resonate with you. What did we do in our country quite a few years ago that we messed up is essentially we knew we needed more training. We needed to do more to help young people be successful in careers. So we sort of created this environment where we told everyone they should go to college. They should all get a university degree. To be open with you, that was a mistake. We should never discourage anyone from getting a university degree. What we messed up at is we used to have a much better path. We had an equal track that was called VOED back in my days. We called it vocational education to help people become skilled tradespeople. We need to reestablish that. We need to come back and say there should be an equally honorable, important, well-recognized track to well-paying, good middle-class careers for the skilled trades. And I can tell you, the jurisdiction that does the best at that is going to have a competitive economic advantage in addition to putting tens of thousands of people to work. If you go to mitalent.org today, you'll see we have nearly 90,000 open jobs in Michigan today. Many of those are not being filled because we have a disconnect between people and the skills they need to successfully take those positions. Let's solve that. And when I talk about the skilled trades, think of welder, electrician, plumber, we all know those. But if you're in manufacturing today, you're on the production floor, you're a skilled tradesperson. If you're in agriculture today and you're driving a $500,000 combine, you're a skilled tradesperson. We need to make that connection in all these fields. And there's awesome opportunities. One program we started already that I'm very proud of, actually it happened on that first trip to Germany a couple of years ago that I made. I brought back the German apprenticeship model to Michigan. We modified it to some degree, but that's one of the best ways to address it. How does it work? It's called MAT Squared, Michigan Advanced Technician Training. And one of our first partner schools was Henry Ford Community College. The way it works is you get hired by a company, you start working for the company. You alternate going to school after so many weeks. The company pays your tuition to go to school. After 3 years, you come out with an associate's degree, a certificate in the field, a guaranteed job, and a work commitment for 2 years. Isn't that awesome? The first field we picked is a term most of us were not, I wasn't familiar with a lot, was mechatronics. What is mechatronics? That's a combination of mechanical and electronics. These are the people doing industrial automation or running robotics equipment. These are careers that are well-paying careers. These jobs are not going away for the rest of these people's lives. Isn't that great? So this is the kind of thing, we've got dozens of students in it now. We should have thousands. That's the kind of thing we should be ramping up. And similar programs like that in terms of giving people great opportunity. That's the first area. The second one is education. I call our educational system P20, prenatal through lifelong learning. It should be, I call it the ANYs, anytime, any place, any way, any pace, in terms of allowing flexibility for people, students to learn. And it starts with prenatal. I mean, we skip that too often, but we're helping at-risk mothers now. Because it's not about infant mortality, it's about infant wellness, having healthy babies, because they have the opportunity to learn and have a great life. Then the big one we've made a huge investment in, and we should be so proud, is preschool. When I first became governor, I ran across educators that told me they had preschool students that couldn't name, kindergarten students that couldn't name a color. How would you feel if your kids showed up in kindergarten and they couldn't name a color? What do you think their opportunities to learn are, to keep up, to be successful in school? It's awful tough, folks, if you're in that spot. We had 29,000 kids that couldn't afford to go to preschool. We've made the largest investment in the state of Michigan in dollars or percentage of any state in the nation in the last 2 years. We are now becoming a no-wait state for preschool. Everyone will have that opportunity. We should be proud of leading the country. Now, I do want to clear one thing up. There's a piece of hogwash. If you turn on your TV, you'll see this thing, and it's just full of it. That's the issue about education spending for K-12. They say I cut state dollars for K-12. Let me give you the simple math. And again, I'm a CPA. You don't need to be a CPA to follow this one. The year before I became governor, it was $10.6 billion. The budget I just signed was $11.7 billion. In the 3 years in between, if you add up the increases over those 3 years, it's $1.1 billion. We've invested a lot more. But we need, again, not talk money, let's talk about student growth. Keeping in that process. The next level is, I talked about career tech ed. The other thing that we can emphasize to help with college costs is dual enrollment. College is too expensive, more than we'd like to see. Let's be innovative. We're going to continue to work costs in those institutions, but let's change the question. Dual enrollment is where you get college credit while you go to high school. That's happening all over now. If you can get a year of college then, which is absolutely feasible, a year of college then while you're still in high school, you save 25% on a bachelor's degree, 50% on an associate's degree. It's the best value you're going to get. We need to expand that. One side note, it was really exciting. I got my associate's degree in the last month. Isn't that kind of cool? After all those years, I got 3 degrees from the University of Michigan. I got my associate's degree. And how did that happen? Because when I was young, I had 25 credit hours when I was in high school. And I didn't get dual enrollment credit at all. So it was kind of fun. I wanted to illustrate the principle. So they said they would take some of my U of M hours so I could graduate from Kellogg Community College. So I finally graduated. But when I was in Battle Creek, I asked them about dual enrollment. In the Battle Creek area alone, they have 1,200 students in dual enrollment. 1,200. Just think how many we can have across Michigan. The third area is good government. We needed to do something about having better run government in Michigan. When I took office, 2 of the 3 years before I took office, we had budget shutdowns. The rainy day fund in the state of Michigan, when I took office, had $2 million in it. That would run state government for 30 minutes. We had no idea what our long-term liabilities were. We weren't managing them. That's not responsible. What have we done? In the last 4 years, we've had the fastest budgets in the last 30 years, structurally balanced. Our rainy day fund has about $500 million in it today. And with respect to our long-term liabilities, I can tell you, if you want a really cool job, you should run for governor in 2038. We do 50-year forecasts. We think long-term because we need to think about our kids. And we've done reforms and a payment plan to take care of those legacy obligations. So essentially, we can have the equivalent of a mortgage burning party in 2038. And we're not sticking our kids with those obligations. Isn't that awesome? So this is great stuff we're doing, but let's keep it up. Let's keep going. But those are the things I want to cover for now. Let me stop now and let's do some questions, Sandy, if that's okay.
If you've got a question, raise your hand and we have some people coming around with the microphone.
Okay. Hi, Governor Snyder. I'm Mia Cup. I had the privilege of working with you and Dr. Strecker and Ted Dacko at Health Media.
Yeah.
I wanted everyone to understand I'm a Downriver girl, grew up here, went to school in Detroit, and when I left Downriver, I went to Ann Arbor for a while and worked for this wonderful firm, a healthcare technology company called Health Media, and it was acquired by Johnson & Johnson for an ungodly amount of money, who knows, but I'm back now. And I want everyone to understand a little bit more about how, you know, working with him, all of us at this small startup company thought, man, if we could only have this guy as governor of the state of Michigan. And this was like in 2008. So when we found out you were running, we were like, yes, everything's going to change. I did want to ask, though, about the promise zones. And thinking regionally, bringing some of that energy from Ann Arbor and Detroit and all of the really cool things that are happening into this area, and what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, Health Media, actually I was co-founder of the company. It was an awesome company, and I'm glad to see it still going in some ways. That was one of those entrepreneurship stories. I have to thank my wife for it too, because we went through that phase that we were on the bleeding edge before we got to the leading edge, which meant we lost a lot of money. So actually, Vic and I, the founders, we went to our spouses and we wrote personal checks to keep the lights on until the company became that big success. And your paychecks. So when people ask, yes, I have signed a lot of paychecks in my day, but they're for great people like you. In terms of zones, what I would say is There's 2 or 3 kinds, and one in particular that we've seen success in Ann Arbor, we've been talking about, are smart zones. This is really to encourage entrepreneurship and innovation, and we're going to open up more opportunities. We sort of limited the first group of them, and that goes back to the late 1990s, is when they were first done. We've got more interest now for communities and areas that want to do that to really help startups and entrepreneurship. So I think you could see legislation talking about offering a number of areas the opportunity to be part of those. So that's something if the people in the downriver area would like to be part, that's really the area stepping up to say, you want to potentially have your own zone or partner with another community that has a zone. Because one of the great opportunities is partnership opportunities. And this is something I'm so proud of. We're now finding areas working together that never really worked together before. And I'll give you an illustration. Up in the Upper Peninsula, there was a smart zone in Houghton Hancock at Michigan Tech. And Marquette wanted one. So instead of doing it on their own, they actually have partnered with Houghton Hancock. And they're going to both be better, stronger communities because they decided they don't need to do everything separate. It's about winning together and really encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation and creating that critical mass. So those are the kind of things I'd encourage you to think about. And we're doing a lot more regional efforts. I'm really trying to get regions to work together in the state because it's a huge power. And to be open with you, the Tri-County region, which is a region in its own right, is probably lagging behind somewhat because there's a lot of history of the counties not working so well together. We're starting to see that change though, and I'll give you 2 illustrations of great regionalism. We got the Regional Transit Authority, we're going to get that going, and now we've got the Regional Water Authority. So we're really pushing hard on that because these were problems that were around for 40 or 50 years, and it was just people sometimes behaving badly, to be open with you, kind of blaming and fighting with one another instead of just saying, let's solve the problem together. So I'd encourage you to look at the smart zone area in particular.
I'm Harriet Cole. I'm a longtime Downers person. And my question is, haven't heard too much about the bridge.
Yeah. I love that question.
Just wondered about the bridge, is anything going to happen with the second bridge?
Absolutely. Yeah, the bridge is going to get built, and it's going to get done in 2020. And the good part is we're now seeing real progress. You may not have the chance I just put something out yesterday to say we had already done some property assembly. The demolition work starting on parcels now for where the bridge will be built. The permits are all in place. We now have the crossing authority in terms of leadership there. So this process is moving along. And so actually we should see more physical evidence of it happening. The only aggravating part I will share with you, and there was a lot of aggravating parts in the past, but in terms of what we still need to address, it's not going to stop the bridge project, is the U.S. government and their lack of interest to actually contribute towards the cost of the U.S. Customs Plaza. So the bridge is going to get done. What I would tell you is I'm not going to stop bugging the U.S. government because I don't think they're being fair to Canada and being responsible. Because it's for the U.S. government's benefit. To ask the country of Canada to pay something for us is not really right. And the Canadians are too polite to really bring up that point. And they're fabulous partners. So I'm going to continue that dialogue. So if you see me getting after the people in Washington on that, it's not meaning the bridge isn't going to get built. It's just meaning I think we should stand up and do the right thing as Americans because one of our closest allies, partners, and friends have been the Canadians. And we need to treat them with respect. I do give them a hard time about hockey, though. They get a little grumpy when I mention it's hockey town here. They don't.
Hello, Governor. I'm Kathleen Alessander with Everybody Ready, and I'm also speaking for the chair of the Great Start Collaborative in Wayne County. Yes, we'd like to thank you for all of the resources that you put behind early childhood and let you know that we are committed to have Wayne County be the leader in developing excellent early childhood programming here, moving everything forward.
Awesome. This is the program in preschool I was talking about, and it makes a huge difference, doesn't it, in terms of these kids' lives. So thank you for your leadership and being part of that. Here we got one. Oh, we got them coming both ways.
Thank you. Is that okay? First, I want to comment to the Governor that I was in Wyandotte, Michigan 2 weeks ago having dinner at a place called R.P. McMurphy's, and the lady behind me looked at my hair. I said, "Aren't you the guy I'm supposed to vote for?" I said, "Doggone right, I'm the second tough nerd." But all that joking aside, I did want to ask you a question about jobs. Your team and us, the Republicans, are saying 300,000 jobs in your tenure here. The Democrats say you haven't done the jobs. Now, how can they say that? What basis do they have for that?
It's hard to answer someone when they're not sticking to the facts. So I appreciate that. And you're a lot better looking than I am. If you look at, though, I would make this comment, because again, I'm not going to go negative on anyone, but what I'd say is one of the things I've tried to do since becoming elected, and this is one of the issues that I looked at, not being a career politician or being in this world, is I think the American political system is broken in too many ways. With the negativity, with the blame, the accusations, the lies. And I've tried to be a role model to say, we need to raise that bar. And when I say we, the people that are going to decide to raise that bar is us. It's the citizens finally speaking up, because if the citizens don't speak up, it's not going to change. And the question I like to ask people is, think about what you see on TV, and then ask yourself the question, if this was going on in your family or your work, how would it be received? If people behave the way they do in the political world, like you see at work, they would be looking for a new job. If it happened in your family, I can guarantee you there would be some really interesting discussions going on within the family. And that wouldn't be accepted. That would not be tolerated. So that's that standard question we need to raise. And so if you see my ads, I'm trying to stay positive, talking about real issues and substance. I hope that catches on more, and I hope people are willing to speak up to say, we don't even want to see any of the other ads. Because too much of it is not helping anyone solve a problem. I like to use Washington as a contrast. I wish I couldn't use it, but they're a mess. And if you stop and say, I have my philosophy of relentless positive action, what would happen in Washington if they all agree they wouldn't blame anyone or fight with anyone? They'd have a whole lot of time to solve problems. And it gives us a great opportunity to do things. So I appreciate your question. While we're waiting, I want to give a big shout out. One of the people I'm proud to have here is a guy I appointed to the Michigan Supreme Court. We have Brian Zara. Because all these laws I come up with, we need good people interpreting them.
Welcome downriver, Governor.
Thank you.
You've accomplished a lot in your first term to make Michigan a better place to do business. Reforms with the single business tax and other initiatives. What do you have on the plate in your second term to make Michigan more competitive, to be able to compete with neighboring states like Indiana, Ohio, and that region?
Yeah, we're actually doing relatively well. There are a few things still in terms of the competitive landscape, but the best one was getting rid of the Michigan business tax. Actually, if you used to go down to Indiana, they would tell you the biggest economic development tool the state of Indiana had was the Michigan business tax. I'm not kidding. The personal property tax reform was huge. We've done a lot of regulatory reform in a number of departments that had created a lot of issues. And again, we've updated them, would be the Department of Environmental Quality. And it's just not about the number of regulations. It's learning to treat people as the customer. Too often we had an attitude, and again, good people, but they were taking the position that was more like, go penalize people or go after people, versus saying, our role is to help our citizens succeed. Why we make sure they're complying with the regulations to keep our citizens safe. And so we're doing a lot of work on that. One area we still need to work on, and I've laid the framework out, but I want to work on that after the election, is our electrical costs. Electrical costs in Michigan are higher than I'd like them to be in a lot of ways. And that's something we can look at some reforms and longer term improvements with some energy reforms to make us more competitive, more environmentally sound with better reliability. So energy is an issue that I really want to focus in on. The single biggest one to make us competitive is the skilled trades issue. If you talk to, do we have any people in manufacturing here that hire skilled trades people? If you're part of that world, I bet you have a whole bunch of openings that you can't find as many people as you'd hire. And this is happening all across the country. So when we fill these jobs, you're going to find people saying, well, I'm not just going to hire 5 people, I can hire 10 now. I can grow my business. And you're going to find other businesses coming here. So it's a huge strategic advantage. I'm an old-time business person. I can tell you, I can feel this one. This is the one to go for and make this happen because it'll make a huge difference. And in the meantime, you're creating how many great middle-class, well-paying jobs for people that are still looking for work.
Good evening, Governor Snyder. Betty Prisburn, Oakwood Healthcare System. I oversee community health, and I have to commend you for all the support that you've done with our child mental health centers, and particularly with the Medicaid expansion, Healthy Michigan. We have an initiative called Building Healthy Communities, and it's been just overwhelming seeing the number of people that are eligible and how we can actually move from the sickness business into the wellness business by getting these people not only health insurance, but in with providers. So what's the reaction you've received in Lansing from Healthy Michigan, and do you think there's any risks to that?
Yeah, we should never take it for granted because we will have some contribution requirements in future years, but Healthy Michigan's been a huge hit. Thanks, you're doing the hard work. We had a whole campaign last summer where I went around the state and did a lot of forums, and we got broad bipartisan support to get Healthy Michigan done. And I want to put it in context for you because when you talk about healthcare, the first problem I always usually find is the Affordable Care Act's out there. And it was probably the most polarizing thing that happened in our country in a lot of ways over the last few years. And so when I go out and talk about anything related to it, you start with, when you say anything to deal with that, you got half the people loving it and half the people hating it. And to be open with you, having that approach doesn't solve the problem. So the issue was, within the context of saying it's the law, are there good pieces that we can really do something with? There was one good piece in particular, and Medicaid expansion done the Michigan way. So we added personal responsibility and wellness to the front end. And I thought it was appropriate because we have a lot of hardworking, we had a lot of uninsured people that were using the emergency room as their place to go for health care. And that's a terrible answer. It's awful for them, it's awful for us. It was raising costs dramatically, and quite often they'd go too late. So they'd end up with massive costs and expenses. And sometimes they'd lose their life. We have had people die because of that situation. So we launched Healthy Michigan April 1. We thought we might get about 320,000 people to sign up. And what we did is we launched a website. And that can be scary, launching websites for healthcare, right? So our website has worked well enough that literally we had cases of people applying, getting approved, and getting healthcare in the same day. No major hiccups at all. Some minor ones, but nothing major. We've passed 425,000 people, and we're still adding 8,000 to 10,000 people a week to the program. And I started looking at the results. Of those 425,000, we've had over 160,000 primary care visits where they can get preventative care, they can get proactive health care. And how much less is it to get a primary care visit versus an ER visit? And again, the opportunity to stay healthy and what that saves us in so many ways, and the human benefit is huge. The one of the others that stood out, and we only did this because my wife's a breast cancer survivor. We were doing a couple breast cancer related fundraising events. So we asked the question, how many mammograms? And there's about 211,000 women in the program, 13,500 mammograms. Do you know how many would have taken place for that population but for Healthy Michigan? You're probably in the teens to hundreds. We're saving lives. Thank you for your part. You're the ones actually doing the life-saving part.
I'm Kathleen Mary, and I work for Wayne Risa, the intermediate school district that serves Wayne County schools. Typically, lame duck is a time when you clean up and you kind of lay the groundwork for the next term. Can you tell me what's on the agenda or what you're thinking should be on the agenda during this time between now and when the legislature leaves on the 31st?
Yeah, I have one top priority, one huge thing that is number one on my list, and that's road funding. I've been pushing this for a couple of years, and to be blunt, it's a difficult question, and I got great assistance finally this spring from pothole season. Because it didn't really resonate enough with people. And I'll ask you, I always like to ask this question, I'm sorry I have to ask it. How many people here had a blown tire or bent rim? Raise your hand. And then ask yourself the question, wouldn't you have rather invested those hundreds of dollars in better roads instead of paying for those repairs? Well, that was an easy one to get out from. Because people keep on saying, what are you going to do in a second term? I want to get that done in my first term.
Governor Snyder, Michigan's auto insurance has been an expensive and costly system, and we keep working on trying to work toward reform, and then it falls off the shelf again. Do you see anything happening in the next year after your re-election?
Yeah, I think that's something we should continue to revisit. What we need to do is get people to sit down and try to solve the problem more thoughtfully. Because again, this is one of those people polarized. There are people that just want to reduce costs, and on the flip side, there's people that get the perception that we don't care about people that get injured. And so what we need to do a better job of getting to understand there are more cost-efficient, better ways to take care of people that get hurt in accidents and at the same time bring down our costs. And that dialogue needs to take place. I worked hard on getting people to come to the table. We actually came close on some good compromise because this is, again, where you have to actually bring people together to say, well, what's a common sense answer? But that's something that we should look at again in the future. The other part of auto insurance costs that we need to work on is the reduction of fraud in auto insurance. The third thing I can simply tell you is fixing those roads would help too.
Hello, Governor. I'm a little nervous, so I apologize for being nervous. My name is Sandy Spradlin, and I'm a small business owner, but my question has to do with my disabled daughter. Before you took office, a lot of the legislation in the state of Michigan changed, and a lot of funding was cut for disabled students. And my daughter fell into that no man's land.